Hello and welcome back to Sit and See. I'm Dr. Jerry Jones. Those of you who already know me will know my background, but for those of you who stumble on this later, my background includes 20 years of traditional training in Buddhism, 5 years of traditional training in Taoism, and my PhD covers ancient systems of meditation, the philosophy of science, Buddhist philosophy, and modern cognitive scientific research into meditation. I'm on a bit of a mission to help people understand how it is to actually train your mind as a layperson living in the real world. And I've come to the conclusion after many years of trying many things and managing Facebook groups with over 1 million people in them, on and off, coming and going at least, uh, that what lay people need is a bit different than what someone living in retreat or in a monastery might need. And that's why I'm here. So we're doing this class every day, almost every day, as long as I'm up for it, so that I can teach these techniques and answer questions related to people who are training in these techniques and answer more general questions about people's practice and meditation. And let me check in with who's here. Let's see. Dylan is here. Hello, Dylan. Welcome back. General Tao, one of my most generous patrons, making sure that all the lights stay on and we're able to keep this thing going. Welcome, General Tao. As usual, both your moral support and generous contributions over the last month, both very much appreciated. So, for those of you who were able to attend yesterday, I was able to have, well, actually, before we get into that, as some of you already know, the first 10 or 20 minutes of this class, I answer questions related to your personal practice. So if you have those, put them into the chat. Otherwise, I'll just sort of drone on while we wait for people to. Wow, 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 wow. Oh, that's way too kind of you. Thank you, General Tao. Uh, so during the first 20 minutes, if there are no questions, I usually just sort of drone on about what's coming in terms of the channel or what's happening. So yesterday I had my first episode of the new podcast series where I'm interviewing lay practitioners who are quite accomplished. Those lay practitioners might be Buddhist or they might be Taoist, Advaita Vedanta, Hindu, Jain. The idea is because at least up to the point of training and concentration, most of us, maybe even Eastern Orthodox, sort of some of the Western traditions that are dealing with training the mind and concentration, you have to deal with struggling with the mind in terms of ethics and good character, and you have to deal with training the mind in terms of training and concentration. And so us cultivators share this much in common. Whether or not we end up the same place is a little bit besides the point, I think. Uh, so, this new podcast series is meant to help inspire and inform by trying to find practitioners who are doing well in cultivating up to the level of at least training and concentration, right? And therefore, we can draw common cause, common inspiration, and understand, you know what? Actually, maybe there's ways to do this that I hadn't thought of, or maybe there's a sort of little detail here about how to live my life or do this part or that part that I hadn't considered. And so I had Neil Ripsky, who's a lineage holder for a number of different martial traditions, but also quite a capable meditator who's trained in the Thai forest tradition and also trained in a very rare lineage of Shaolin practice. And yeah, so I had Neil on yesterday. Oh, let me tell I think my volume's a little too high, isn't it? Am I crackling when I talk? You guys let me know. So I had Neil on yesterday for the live, and those of you who were able to attend live, you got to see the whole thing. You probably noticed it was taken down this morning, and that's because the police came to my. No, I'm just kidding. It's because I took the video and I'm now editing it, doing post-production, and taking out all of the dead air time and putting in overlays and things so that you can have a better sense of what Neil's talking about and I'm talking about. So I'm going to put some of the critical terms on it. I'm going to put some images of Neil actually doing his martial arts, and it'll make it more interesting and more rich to watch it if you didn't catch it live. So that should be back up in the next couple days. Also, I had a wonderful conversation with Neil today, and we have decided to go ahead, for those who are interested, with a full-on online slight gain on my vocals. You mean it's too soft, or that it's crackling? I don't know what gain means. I'm not I'm not a technical sound person. Uh, so according to so and so on. So in talking with Neil, basically decided today we are going to go ahead and try to get a website together for training people in Lohan. Uh, a slight gain is right. So I don't know what gain means, my friends. You'll have to let me know. So um, Neil really does want to go ahead training people in particular. Oh, too loud. I see. Okay. Yeah, if it's crackling a little bit, that should probably do it right there. You may need to turn your volume up a bit, but the crackling should go away. Yeah, it's clipping my red line. Now it should be okay. Right. So, um, discussing this with Neil today, we decided we're going to go ahead. We're going to build a website for his Lohan training. We're going to start filming the videos, and maybe within a month or two, we'll have that up. With a bit of luck, if things come together, then we may have sort of a pre-sign up available for Lohan training by the time I'm able to put the podcast up, which is way ahead of schedule. We're just blazing ahead because I think people are really interested. I think people are really interested in having all of these good, having all of these physical components that go along with the actual training in meditation. Oh, that's why. No wonder it was so bad. One moment. How's that? That should be better. Yeah, that for some reason it was my computer's microphone and not my normal microphone. That was very strange. Okay, it's probably much lighter now. Right. So, in so many words, keep an eye out. As soon as that podcast episode goes back up, in the links below will be very likely at least a good. I have actually three different audio sources I can use, and it's quite a bit for the old man to deal with. Yeah. So that was my my laptop sound. I don't know why it was on that option. Okay, so anyways, staying on topic, we're going to launch the Lohan website hopefully by the time the episode goes up. And for those who are interested in training in basically a physical and energetic training system to go along with your meditation practices, which is something I don't teach, right? And Neil is he teaches this as a profession, so that obviously it'd be something you have to buy into. It's not my like my stuff. Um, but my goodness, again, you're inheriting the richness of a couple thousand years of the geniuses of trying to figure out how to work with your body, and you have this nice pipeline of Shaolin Buddhist sort of stuff. Uh, has a complete system of training for making the body healthy and good for meditation, making the energy system good for meditation, and because he has training in Thai forest and that system, he has a fair amount of information and experience in training people in meditation along with that system also. So it would I don't know why, but I have a very strong inclination to try to help Neil preserve the fullness of one of these Buddhist training systems for, uh, how to say, one of these Buddhist training systems for making the body perfect for training and meditation. Because the only other one that I know of that's on the Buddhist side, the only other one that I know of comes through the Tibetan Tantras, and you have to have empowerments to do those practices. And this isn't like that. Anybody who wants to do it could do it as long as you have a teacher to do it. So not only does it have the martial art aspect, not only does it have the physical health and meditation body, let's call it the meditation body aspect, not only does it have the energetic aspect, but it's coming through this Buddhist sort of pipeline. So for those who are quite keen to have a physical discipline that is Buddhist, supporting your Buddhist practice and not just sort of like Hindu yoga or whatever, or even Taoist practices. Although the Taoists and the Buddhists, they've had a lot of one night stands and on and it's like an on again, off again relationship for a couple thousand years in China. Um, Again, I'm just so excited that first of all it exists and he has it, and as a Western person, to find someone who understands how to bring this into the modern sort of way of thinking and training and so forth in the West as a Westerner, that's very exciting. It's very exciting to have someone who can bridge that sort of because he trained with a very traditional environment, to be able to bridge that traditional environment with the modern learning environment and the expectations that students have now. It's very exciting. That's part of the reason I'm trying to find lay people and modern folks all over the world training in whatever they're training in, to help translate these more traditional lineages into something that is more understandable for us right now. Okay, well, stay tuned for that. Hopefully, with just a touch of luck, I'll have the podcast back up looking nice and clean with overlays and lots of information tagged onto it so that you can, as you watch it, you can learn stuff, and I'll have diagrams and, well, Neil is talking and, lots of stuff to make it more understandable. And then below that, hopefully there'll be a link at least for a website that says pre-sign up for the course here. If we haven't been able to record the first, month worth of content for it yet, it'll be there. Oh, one of the interesting things, speaking from experience, about training in internal martial arts and training in sort of like the Taoist influence Neigong systems, where you're getting, where you're learning to be able to feel where your heart is, where your lungs are, where your intestines are, where your diaphragm is, where your spleen is, where where you can actually feel all the stuff inside the body. The ability to feel deeper and deeper and subtler stuff into the body, as far as I've seen after 5 years, there's really no, I mean, maybe there's a bottom to it somewhere, but the bottom is really far away from where we are right now. So as long as you know how to take the next step in looking for and finding the next layer of what it is that's making you up as a being, that practice can go on for quite some time. And in a sort of sneaky way, I was chatting with someone about this today. Part of the reason that I do body scanning, beyond the fact that it's highly effective for training and concentration for beginners, is that practice actually does have almost, I mean, maybe sort of like almost infinite potential for you to go deeper and look at what's happening physically at a subtler and subtler level. And for those who are interested in more advanced practices in the Shaolin stuff, in the Taoist stuff, in the tantric stuff, eventually, way down the road, having that kind of body awareness is extremely beneficial. Makes you very prepared for those kinds of practices. So that's a great question. In visualizing the numbers, even what the classics say back to like the 9th century, is that in the beginning, they won't be very clear. They'll be sort of hazy and a little fuzzy and a little bit of movement. And so all you need to do is, it just needs to be clear enough that you know, for example, that it's the number 1. That's it. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be crisp. And you're only visualizing it for maybe 1 second at the end of the breath. So that's the first element. The second element is, if you're the type of person who just in general can't visualize things, then just say the number in your mind. Using the voice in your head, say the number in your mind very, very loudly and forcefully. Yeah. So there's no way to make it more clear. I'll give you another little tidbit on meditation stuff. So the reason that the object isn't clear is because the mind is dull, not because there's something wrong with the object. The object is just something your mind is generating. So the object is actually telling you that your mind is dull and hazy and unclear. So it's just a little bit of proof that your mind, the quality of your mind is actually quite poor. But you can't fix the clarity of this until the mind is stable. So when you start looking at the 9 stages of training and concentration, the first 4 are all about making the mind stable. So for most of us, for most of you, probably for the next like couple of years, you don't need to worry about making the mind that much more clear because the mind won't be stable enough to maintain a higher level of lucidity. When the mind becomes more lucid and awake and bright, then thoughts and concepts, bang, 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 they start erupting. So if the mind isn't already stable before you start increasing the brightness of the mind, then it just explodes with conceptual thought. And that pulls you out of the meditation. So part of one of the symptoms that the mind is suffering from dullness is that the mental images that get produced aren't crisp, they're dull, right? They're dull and hazy and slightly unclear. If you can make it like it's a 1, but it's sort of moving a little bit and it's sort of hazy, but it stays mostly the same color and it stays mostly the same shape for the 1 or 2 seconds that you're holding it there, that's enough. You don't need to try to make it any more clear. And if you try to make it more clear, your mind will get disturbed and it'll pull you out of the activity and you'll lose the activity. So for those of you who'd like to do visualization practices of various kinds, I know some of you who may be watching this have visualization practices. This is important to note. If you're visualizing Buddhas or visualizing mantra syllables or these sorts of things, until the mind has stability, don't try to make it more clear. Just try to make it stable so that you can know what it is by looking at it without it changing, becoming 2 things, without it changing the color too much, without it changing location too much. Like the most basic qualities that it has need to remain relatively stable. Okay. General Tao says, practices that eventually extrovert individual are the most beneficial in the long run. I disagree. All of the most advanced systems, in contrary to the less advanced systems, they put more emphasis on the body, not less emphasis. There's a reason that they say in Tantra that you're going to attain enlightenment within one body, not just one lifetime. This body is extremely important for your training towards enlightenment from a tantric perspective. So it's not a fly trap at all. It is the doorway to the most advanced practices in Buddhism and Taoism, as far as I can tell. Okay. A kaleidoscope number. Yeah, that's because you don't have stability. So if the number is, well, that's one of the things they say in the text. If the thing you're visualizing multiplies into more than the one you intended to be there, like you're trying to visualize a Buddha, but then you see like a cloud of little tiny Buddhas or something, that's one of the signs you don't have stability. But again, it's really hard actually to use visualized images to develop concentration. So this is why I don't teach that method, because it's really tough. It's a tough object to use to generate concentration, but it's still, even if it's all screwed up, it's still good to have some kind of counting going on because you're going to lose the object. So the body and the mind are equally important, because to give you a little bit of justification, every moment of mind, every moment of consciousness has subtle physical substances associated with it called prana or wind or kundalini. And those are running through this physical unit. And your ability to generate the subtlest states of consciousness depend upon this unit, not just consciousness. If you were reborn in the Deva realms, for example, according to the Tantras, you don't have the physical makeup that would allow you to use these subtle substances to generate the subtlest states of mind, and therefore you can't do the highest levels of tantric practice, which is why it's better to be a human being. This body is incredibly valuable. It's like having stumbled upon an island filled with jewels. This body is incredibly important. Do you know one of the tantric vows is to not abandon your body? One of the tantric vows is that you have to take care of your body. One of like 18 things they think is really important in tantra is to take care of your body. That's worth considering. Okay, I digress. Enville, since I haven't seen you in the stream before, I will politely mention, I will answer the question, but I'll politely mention this is a session where we try to ask questions about our own practice, what the practices you're actually doing today or tomorrow or yesterday. And I try to answer those kinds of questions, but I'll answer this because you're new. And so poa means transfer of consciousness. It's a tantric practice, and you're basically learning how to eject your consciousness through the top of your head. And you can do that a little bit while you're alive. And the people that do those practices report lots of interesting things, even while they're alive. And then at the time of death, rather than sort of dying randomly at a random time, you decide, okay, I'm going to leave now, and you shoot your consciousness out and you go exactly where you want it to go. And from my understanding of those practices, one of the benefit is that because you're doing it deliberately, you can sort of prepare your situation a little bit better than if you were to leave through the normal process. And therefore, you can take much more of your training, your memories, etc., from the current situation to the next situation. Or you can just sort of bang, shoot out the top of the head to one of the Pure Lands, sort of straight ticket to somewhere you want to do the next round of your training. Yeah. Nothing wrong with being new. Nothing wrong with being curious. I do lots of open Q and A's, but this session, the sit and see sessions, I try to focus on people's actual seated practice. So whatever you're actually doing in practice, whatever's coming up, whatever questions you actually have about the practices you're doing from day to day, I try to answer those questions, and then we do some practice together. So probably in the next, well, actually, right about now, we're going to start doing some practice for those who are interested. Okay, let me transfer over to my lapel mic. We're going to do some standing practice today, everyone's favorite. This is where the stream cuts down from like 14 or 20 people down to 4 in a period of 20 minutes. You guys might be off the hook. It looks like my lapel mic is not working. Let me try one more time. Okay, Well, looks like you're off the hook. I can't do standing practice if I don't have microphone, if I don't have my lapel mic. Very lucky. Very lucky. Okay, so I guess we'll do some seated practice in that case. So assume a comfortable position. Ashley, Ashley, you can ask whatever questions you have about your practice. Let's do our session for the day first, and then if there are still questions afterwards, we'll do those after. So for those who are new to the techniques that I'm teaching, these will probably seem very unusual to you, but hang in there because these have very good sort of lineage credentials. They come from good places, they come from highly accomplished practitioners, and I have spent a great deal of time assessing a large number of different techniques from a lot of different standpoints, both personal experience, lineage, cognitive science, a whole the classics in terms of Buddhist mind training texts. And I've put techniques in this order because I'm trying to address the actual problems that come up in meditative training in order, which is very unusual in terms of a method. Usually it's not taught quite that way. Um, but both myself and my students have had very, very good results with these techniques. So, having said that, if this seems unusual to you to start out, especially this first technique, hang in there. There's really, really good reasons to do it this way. Okay? All right, let's begin. So, get a good position. So, the instructions for the first practice are quite simple. This is a breath meditation, but it's not going to be like any breath meditation you've done before if you've not been with me, probably. The major problem that you have when you start out meditation is that your mind won't go where you put it and it won't stay there once it gets there. In order to actually accomplish meditation, you have to be able to pool the entire bandwidth of your mind, the entire bandwidth of all of your attention that's being taken up by your five senses and the mental content that's occurring in your mind, and you have to pool it all in one place. Now, right now, your mind has a fantastically well developed habit of spreading the attention out between the five senses and chasing whatever happens to pop into your mind. So, the great texts on this describe your mind like a wild, drunken elephant angrily stampeding through the jungle. Just being nice to yourself cannot stop a wild, drunken elephant. You have to use something that meets it head on with great force. This is what the great masters teach. And so this technique is coming through that line of thinking, and it can help you address the first two problems you have in meditation very, very, very quickly. What it relies upon is applying extremely great force. This is not relaxing. Extremely great force, as if everything is riding on it, as literally as if it is a life and death struggle for just 5 minutes. It's the equivalent of maxing out at the gym. You're putting absolutely every ounce of mental and physical energy you can into keeping your mind where you put it. And because you're focusing single pointedly on developing that particular muscle, that particular skill, you can develop the ability to put your mind somewhere very, very quickly. So the technique works sort of like this. So first just breathe in naturally through the nose and put your attention on inside the nostrils somewhere and see where the most sensations are. I recommend closing the eyes You can open them for other techniques, but for now, we're trying to get every bit of attention we can to the place we want it. So when you find the most sensitive patch of skin, you're going to be placing your mind on the actual tactile sensations, the actual things you feel on the skin inside the nostril. You're not going to be labeling them with words. You're not going to be imagining anything. You're not going to be visualizing anything besides the numbers to count if you're good with visualizations. Um, your sole task, besides counting, which is part of the activity, is to put every single ounce of your attention, drawing it up from your body, drawing it from your senses, drawing it from your mind with extremely great intensity. They call it in the text, the technical term is forceful conveying, to convey your attention to the object with great force, as if everything is riding on this, because it actually is. Place your mind on that patch of skin, and when you breathe in and breathe out, count the number 1 in your mind at the end of the out breath, again with great force. Visualize the number 1 in front of you if you can, briefly, just for a moment, and say the number 1 in your mind with great force, loudly in your mind. And then return to the breath, breathe in, breathe out, 2, breathe in, breathe out, 3, and so on until you get to 7. You're going to count from 1 to 7, 7 to 0. When you get to 0, you can move the body a little bit and adjust if you need to, but other than that, you remain completely and entirely still. If it seems like the most sensitive part is moving around, keep it where it was when you started the practice. Don't move the point of attention around. Just keep your mind on the original place that you put the attention. Okay? So we're going to begin. So when I say begin, because the muscle we're working out is being able to draw your mind in when you want to, how you want to, for as long as you want to, as soon as I say begin, as if your hair has caught on fire, put every single ounce of your energy, your thought, your intent, your drive to succeed at everything else in life, every ounce of your being into simply observing that patch of skin. Okay? So here we go. 3, 2, 1, begin. Keep the eyes closed. Just relax the effort for a moment. Don't do anything in particular. Now place the attention in the left foot. And as I name each body part, don't visualize it. Don't try to figure it out. Don't imagine what it's like, or don't imagine where the parts are. Just simply become aware, in the same way you became aware of the breath, become aware of the actual physical sensations you have in that part of the body. And if you don't feel anything in that part of the body, then just become aware that you don't feel anything in that part of the body. So, left foot, left ankle, left calf, left knee, lower thigh, upper thigh, and hip, right foot, right ankle, right calf, right knee, lower thigh, upper thigh, into the hip, front of the pelvis, back of the pelvis, including the buttocks, find the sacrum, which is the area of the spine that connects into the hips, between the two big hip bones. Travel down the sacrum to the tailbone and let the mind compress into the tailbone, just like it did with the breath. Move forward, become aware of the anus, perineum, and scan the sexual organ, both inside and out, to the best of your ability. And when you finish, come to rest at either the tip or the most sensitive point, depending upon your gender. Now slide backwards back to the tailbone, up the sacrum. Find the tops of your hip bones and just follow your spine upward a bit. And that area that's between the lower ribs and above the hip bones, and a little bit of the area of the lower ribs as well. This is your waist, the back of your waist. So place the mind in the back of the waist. And the front of the waist. Slide your attention upwards from the front of the waist to the solar plexus. So from the solar plexus down to about the top of the waist in the front, I call this the diaphragm belt because this is the area that is most affected by and the area where your diaphragm is actually located in. Most affected by the diaphragm and the area that the diaphragm is in. So become aware of the front of the diaphragm belt. And likewise, become aware of the back of the diaphragm belt. Now find the spine again, slide up the spine to the top of the diaphragm belt, sort of if you drew a line from your solar plexus backwards to the spine, that'll be the top of the diaphragm belt. Now from there to that large bone between your spine and your neck, I call this the chest belt. So within the upper chest cavity is your heart and your lungs. So inside the chest belt, you have your lungs and your heart. You probably can't feel very much of those at the moment. That's okay. As best you can, try to feel underneath the shoulder blades, which are part of your shoulders more so than your back, and feel the actual chest that stretches around the back of the body. If you can't feel under your shoulder blades, that's okay. Just include the shoulder blades. But if you can, try to get underneath them and just feel the chest in the back. Likewise, I consider the collarbones to be more so a functional part of the shoulder than a part of the chest. So try to become aware of the chest in the front of the body, not including the collarbones. So you may need to get a bit underneath the collarbones to become aware of the chest. If you can't do that, that's fine. Just do what you can. Bring your awareness to the top of the left shoulder, the front of the left shoulder, including that left collarbone, the outside of the left shoulder, the back of the left shoulder, including that scapula or shoulder blade as it's called, and the armpit. Okay. Next, slide the mind down to the bicep on the left arm. Elbow, forearm, wrist, the palm and the back of your hand, and each of your fingers. Thumb, pointer, index, pointer, middle, ring, pinky. And slide your awareness back up the left arm, across the shoulders to the right shoulder. Come to the top of the right shoulder now. And the front of the right shoulder, including that collarbone on the right-hand side. Outside of the right shoulder. And the back of the right shoulder, including the scapula. Armpit. And the bicep region. Elbow. Forearm. Wrist. Palm and back of the hand. Thumb. Pointer. Middle. Ring. Pinky. Now from the pinky, slide back up the right arm to the lower third of your neck. As moderns, we very often store quite a bit of tension in the lower third of the neck. So I like to spend a bit more time here, but there's no special technique. Just continue to observe as best you can non-conceptually, not dividing stuff up or not dividing it up very much, not trying to figure it out, not trying to do anything with it. Just become highly aware of the actual tactile sensations you feel in the lower third of the neck. And the lower third of the neck, in my way of thinking, it's a bit like a big cone of different tissues that connect into the rest of the neck and the trunk of the body, the upper chest, right? So you have connections running to the tops of your scapula and the top of your back there, and you have connections running down to the front of the chest underneath the collarbones. So as best you can, become aware of that whole big ring of tissue that connects the neck to the rest of the trunk in that lower third of the neck. Bring the awareness up to the middle third of the neck. The upper third of the neck. I'm going to take a moment to pause the scan here just to point something out. Many of you are probably feeling tension in your neck that isn't your neck. So just as an experiment, very, very, very slowly, squeeze the shoulders behind you. If you go too quickly, you'll pull yourself out of the meditative state, so go as slow as you can. Squeeze the shoulders behind you, and then slowly lift the shoulders up towards your ears. They don't need to reach your ears, just begin to lift them that direction, and continue to squeeze them together as you lift. And slowly tighten them until they are as tight and as high and as squeezed as you can. And then release. And I'm hoping for some of you that maybe not all the tension in the neck, but a fair amount of the tension in the neck goes away when you do this sort of thing, because quite a bit of the tension we feel in the neck is actually us lifting the shoulders up, which comes from anxiety and fear quite often. So now just leave that wherever it ended up, and we'll carry on with the practice. So place the mind now back into the upper third of the neck. And find, if you can, the joint between the skull and the neck bones itself. And just generally become aware of the whole skull. And then let your attention pool on the top of the head, the top of the scalp. And on the top of the scalp, you may feel that there's one area where you feel warmth or coldness or tingling or movement or pressure. And just place your attention on that area. If you don't feel anything, then just put your mind on the back third of your skull in the middle. Okay, now from there, let your mind fall back down the neck, fall down the chest area, in the back, down the spine, fall down past the diaphragm belt area, and arrive at the waist. And at the area of the sort of the middle of the waist area, in terms of your spine, as best you can, just sort of enter through there into the lower abdominal cavity. And then don't stretch your belly. Don't breathe extra air. You're going to breathe the same amount of air, but just let your breathing relax down until you can feel it in that lower part of your abdomen without breathing extra deep and without breathing extra long and without stretching your belly in a weird way. Just let your breathing become deep. or not deep, but let your breathing hit the lower abdomen. Now, before you open your eyes, just relax your attention and don't do anything with it in particular. And as best you can, just sort of observe your mind without trying to find anything in particular. Just sort of watch what happens as you relax your attention and as your ordinary sense of self, etc., returns to full functioning. Okay, questions? So General Tao says that when they do body scanning, discomfort goes away. This is part of the reason I teach this technique really early on in the system as I've designed it, because one of the biggest complaints and difficulties people have, besides not being able to focus, is that the body gets uncomfortable. And body scanning is very well known, in particular in the cognitive scientific world, for reducing both acute pain, which means that the pain is new and temporary, and chronic pain, meaning that it's pain you've been suffering from for years. So, body scanning meditation can make your body more comfortable and your mind less restless, while also making the concentration more deep. And because you're affecting your system at the level of the body and the nervous system, in addition to working with your mind, training, and concentration, the benefit or effect of the work you just did will last longer than if you were just brute forcing it by placing the mind on the breath. Because you're now working with the body and the nervous system, and also from a sort of uh, from a Buddhist psychological point of view, you're also working with the subtle body. So, in terms of dark areas inside the body, yeah, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah. So, someone else mentioned that, they have bison tendonitis. So, yeah, anywhere you have pain in the body, just by flushing sort of clean, calm awareness through that part, it's a bit like normally your awareness is spread out all over the place, you know, and the let's say, as I say, sometimes say, these subtle physical substances that come along with being aware of stuff, those are also spread out. But when you pool a huge amount of attention in one area, if you don't want to talk about subtle physical substances, you can just say that you're encouraging that part of your nervous system. Let's to keep it a little more secular. You're encouraging that part of your nervous system by putting very calm, highly focused awareness on that area to also become calm like the mind is that's observing that area. And this has the effect that the whole system sort of gets a wash. It gets sort of a cleaning, because you go through and you're sort of cleaning out each area, so to speak. And so the level of the effect you're creating is not just a mental effect, it's also a physical effect, which is part of the reason this is so effective. And then some of you probably can gain a sense from this already that because there's less pain, because the mind is more settled, because the body is more settled, now like as of right this moment, your mind would be much more amenable to whatever kind of practice you wanted to do. So now, if you had visualization practices, mantra practices, some of you may have asanas and whatever from various systems or sadhanas or whatever else you're doing. Now, if you did it with a body that's comfortable and a mind that's already pretty focused and calm, it's going to be way more effective, right? So this is why I put these at the early stages of the practice. So it's one of the reasons. Interesting to notice dark areas. Yeah, the dark areas will change as you do more practice. They become more, you can see them more. I notice that when I can occupy the space of the body, I perceive it much better and all the discomfort is gone. Yeah, see, this is really interesting. There's no good reason for this, really. But if you read the cognitive scientific literature on body scanning meditation, they literally say, for example, that this is so weird and it doesn't really make that much sense. But what they say is, even if the amount of pain remains exactly the same from a cognitive psychological perspective, the brain's negative response to that pain becomes less. So it's as if your mind is totally comfortable with the amount of pain that's there, even if the pain doesn't go away. So on the one hand, it makes pain less, and on the other hand, it makes your response to pain less. You see? So whether your pain becomes less or your pain, your sort of pain tolerance goes up, so to speak, both of these are benefiting your ability to then take all of your attention and focus it somewhere else, which is the name of the game in terms of training and meditation, yes? Being able to take your attention and put it where you want it is the fundamental skill of meditative training. So having a body that's more comfortable because you've trained it to be more comfortable is incredibly important if you want to make progress in your training. And this technique, makes it much easier. It's way less of a struggle. Okay, Oates social media says, Freud talked about a subtle body and mind like substance in one of his books. See, that's interesting. I mean, this isn't actually a faith issue, like there are very basic exercises you can do that show you that at least even if you're not quite sure that it's a real substance, let's say, there are very basic exercises you can do that show you that at least it seems like in experience, there are these substances you can move around with your mind that don't really seem to follow the normal anatomy of the body. Now, whether or not those things are actual real substances of some kind is not the point, because in reality, we do know, even from a scientific point of view, that when you do things with those substances, it does things to your body and it does things to your mind. And that's the real where the rubber meets the road in terms of these practices is whether or not they create the effects that they promise to create for the sake of your practice, and they do. So without spending too much time on that, because I don't teach those practices, very important. You know who does teach those practices? Neil Ripsky. So the Lohan system, once we get the website up and running, and you can subscribe to that if you'd like, and you can go through that training program on Lohan with Neil, it has a full system for training that whole part of your being. Yeah, okay. Are there more questions? Questions about what happened today or your practice in general? One of the interesting ideas that Neil came out with yesterday is that you're in a race against your mortality to make progress in these practices. As we get older, the body will get crappier. You will have more pain. You'll have more illness. You'll have more dysfunction. And so one of the great benefits that again, you can take on one of the Hindu systems for yoga or something like this. Lots of Hindu yogas and kriyas and so forth to make the body very healthy and to try to keep it functioning as you get older. Why I'm so excited about Neil's system is that it's one of the systems that's come through one of the Buddhist lineages, and thank goodness it made it out of China during the Cultural Revolution, and thank goodness somebody carried it on. And even better, what an incredible blessing, especially if you're living, let's say, as a Western person in the modern world, that someone who was, is a Canadian citizen and a Western person took it on, went all the way down the rabbit hole, learned the system, got certified in that system by their teacher to carry it on, and now knows how to teach it exactly right for people who have minds that are influenced by modern Western education, which is basically everyone on the planet now, to some degree has been influenced by, let's call it sort of imperialist education stuff. Everybody has a little bit of this sort of Greek Enlightenment thing going on. Okay. Yes, Jack. So fear, fear and anxiety has lots of symptoms. Lots of symptoms. So you'll notice, for example, people that are afraid, they go like this. Why? Because biologically, this is a soft area, right? It's where all the blood is traveling up to your head. If something grabs onto this, you can't breathe. And if something grabs onto this and tears it open, the blood spills out and it doesn't go to your brain and you die. So when you become afraid as biological beings who at least are partially the result of a evolutionary process of needing to survive, right? We go like this to hide the soft bit of the neck. So you see people do this. That's fear. It's anxiety. Same thing, you're lifting the back here. What are you doing? You're protecting the brainstem. The other thing people do is all of your organs are here, right? You have all this bone to protect the heart and the lungs, part of the liver, etc. But all of this down here, all of this down here, all this soft stuff, if something bites it or stabs it or whatever, you're going to be in big trouble. And so what people do is you see them go like this. Or you see them take their chest, and they go like this, right? So that those ribs come down and protect more of the guts. Or sometimes also, this is a little bit more funny, but all people will take their hands and they'll put it in front of their genitals, right? They cross their hands in front of their junk. Because again, the part of our animal nature, you don't want something if something attacks you, you don't want it to get the family jewels, And so we have this habit actually of covering up a lot of the front of the body, rounding like this and covering a lot of stuff in the front of the body if we're afraid or anxious. And interestingly, even according to Western cognitive science on this stuff, if you just stand with better posture, with the joints open and everything where it's supposed to be, it changes your mental state. So you can use the body to change the mental state, which is actually, without telling you guys, part of what I'm doing with body scanning. We're putting attention through the body to change the body so that the mental state will improve by making the body different. By making the body relax, calm, the whole system feels better. The quality of the mind will become more calm, etc. Yeah, there's lots of little things you can do to try to let go of the tension. But the best thing is, for example, when you get to Foundation 2, Jack, in the system that I teach, When you get to foundation 2, I teach standing meditation. And if you do standing meditation with proper posture, it will dramatically change your body. Even though you're just standing there, if you just sort of open the tissue the right way and everything is just not actively intensively stretched, but just slightly stretched, right? Like my hand, I say this sometimes when you're doing standing meditation, it's not a noodle like this. It's not just hanging there. It's alive, slightly like this, so that it has this slightly stretchy feeling. See? You see what I mean? So it's not completely asleep. And what this does is it connects up the stretchy tissue, the fascia and the tendons and so on and so forth. It connects those up in really long chains that stretch around the whole body. So if you were interested in, internal martial arts and this sort of thing, this is part of how they generate power for those arts, is using the stretchy bits of the body. But in any case, you don't really need to know all that. If you stand properly, it will change your psychology, your health will improve, your blood flow will improve. A lot of other interesting things will happen, like, I don't know, don't really need to talk about it, but a lot of good things happen if you have proper posture. And so, for example, instead of having the chest really raised up like this or crunched over like this, you just have it in the appropriate place. Instead of having the neck out here like this, you have the neck in the appropriate place. Instead of having your shoulders up here, you have the shoulders down in the sockets. And not only in the sockets, because sometimes people's shoulders are like this. If you work out a lot, for example, you see people that work out a lot and the shoulder is pulled in like this, right? Because the pecs are really tight and the back is really tight. But watch my shoulder. When I relax, see how it moves away from the body? Having space in the joint so that it can move is part of having a healthy joint. So in any case, if you learn to stand properly, the whole body functions better. And even if you only have one standing posture, and there are hundreds of different postures you could do if you were really interested in that side of it. Matter of fact, again, the Lohan system that Neil has, and once that course is up, I'm probably going to be plugging it a lot because this piece is missing for a lot of people. It really helps your training to have something like this. Yeah. Jack, that's exactly it. Even just that first standing posture that I teach in the system makes the body connect up as one coordinated unit. So not only are you training body scanning, body awareness, directional awareness in 6 directions for the body, and then full body meditation. Not only are you training these skills that will improve you as your meditative capability, but I'm also just for free throwing in a way of standing that will make your whole bodies better. Your whole system will function better if you use all the little pieces that I put into that practice. So yeah, I think that's really important. It'll make your seated practice more comfortable too. If you learn how to stand properly, it changes your hips, it changes your shoulders, it changes your neck, it changes your back. And then when you sit down, the whole body's more comfortable. It sounds unbelievable that just standing there for 10 minutes at a time would do all this, but it really does if you stand properly. So again, without describing everything, because it just becomes an overwhelming amount of detail, I built this into my system of training on purpose because a lot of people's bodies are so screwed up they can't do the practice. And you can fix that by standing. And you don't need a whole bunch of postures. If you just do one posture really well, you can fix a lot of the problems. Bonus. Free bonus. Not only is it free, but there's also free stuff in the free stuff. Okay, my friends, do we have more questions? Yeah, so Jack, go to the meditation and mindfulness playlist on YouTube for my channel, and you'll see Foundation 1 and Foundation 2, and that'll have my body scanning practice done as a standing practice, and it'll have the breath practice we did today. And then, if you want to be a bit more hardcore about it, I have a full book on this as well. And I'm having a bit of a debate with myself at the moment because I don't want to put anything behind a paywall. So if you wanted access to the book, I'll just give you access to the whole book when it's ready. But also, I'm going to park my book on the school course that I have listed below this course, below this class. So for those who are interested, I'm putting together a group of people that want to train quite seriously, and also obviously I do everything for free. So if you join the school course, you're supporting me financially so that I can do it for free for everyone else, right? But in the school course, that whole community is entirely dedicated to doing these practices. And so when they put up, thank you. Thank you, Oates. So when they put up comments on the wall of the school course, they're asking a whole bunch of questions and so on and so forth that then improve your understanding because everyone's working on the same stuff. And then furthermore, I'm trying to get at least 100, maybe 200 practitioners together who want to support each other financially in doing extended retreat. So when we have between 100 and 200 members, and those members have been thoroughly training, like actually training, and they know enough of my stuff to be fully qualified in doing those practices and have done at least one retreat in my system so that they can actually do all the practices. Then at that point, we're going to hopefully, because I'm priming everyone for this now, what I'd really like to do is think about it like this. If you want to go into retreat for 10 days and a third of your monthly bills, let's say for your household and the cost of the retreat, etc., let's say it's $1,000, just throwing it out there to make the math simple. If there's 100 of us, we can all chip in $10 and put you into retreat for 10 days. And you don't have to worry about how you're going to continue contributing to the kids' college fund and pay the bills and all the stuff you were supposed to do with the money you were going to make from that 10 days. You can just go into retreat. And as long as whatever retreat you're doing, I'm able to verify through whatever lineage you're training in is a real thing, that you're not taking a trip to Tahiti or something, then you can train in whatever lineage you're training in. I'm not territorial. I'm not trying to rip people away from valid lineages of Buddhism and so on and so forth. I want you to become really good at whatever lineage practices you're doing if you have them. And if you don't have a lineage and you would just want to train with me, then I'll give you instructions for how to do your 10-day retreat or your 2-week retreat or your 1-month retreat or whatever the community can afford to fund at that time. So this is what I'm building with the school course, is a hardcore community that wants to support me in teaching all this for free, first of all. Secondly, want to support each other in training in these practices. And thirdly, financially support each other going into long-term retreat as and when we can, right? Because we do need to do some retreat. And the biggest barrier for most people, I think, is the financial one, not the time. So that's what I'm building there. So if you want to go a bit more hardcore and join the community, so to speak, and, like I said, I'll park the book there. But even if I park the book there, I'll still give it to whoever wants it for free. Yeah. So actually, if you're in a tradition that where you have Kala Chakra empowerment, and I can talk to your teachers and they say, yes, this is something. Yeah, that's the link. And your teachers say, yes, this is something that this particular student should do at this time. And the community comes together and says, okay, we'll all chip in so that you can do 30-day dark retreat. What a blessing for all of us. I mean, the fact that all of us could come together and for $10 put one of us through intense practice. I get goosebumps thinking about the good karma that we're going to produce from this, Not to mention that when I need to do retreat, you guys can help me. The fact that we're all trying to struggle and figure out how to do it alone is kind of nuts. If we supported each other, all of a sudden, our ability to do practice becomes much more. This is why the community is so important. The Buddha said in the Pali Canon, he said, Ananda came to him once and said, he said, Buddha, isn't it wonderful that the holy community, the community of colleagues and comrades and mentors and so forth on the path, isn't it wonderful that they're half of the holy life? And the Buddha's, if the Buddha says something twice, it's serious. The Buddha says, Ananda, don't say that. Don't say that. He says, having friends and colleagues and comrades on the path is the whole of the holy life. It's the entire thing. Think about that. So here we are struggling on alone, trying to do all this shit. And the Buddha is saying, you need a community to help you. That's the whole thing. Anyways, ironically, I got this idea from my Taoist teacher here in Edinburgh. He said that in the Taoist tradition, because it was lay people for centuries, you'd get 4 or 5 people together who were quite serious. And then those 4 or 5 people would agree that when one of you needed to go into retreat for a month or 2 months or 3 months, that the other 4 would come together and support you financially. And that therefore everyone at some point during their practices and their training would be able to go and do the intense parts of the training that needed to be done without their life falling apart. And I thought, wow, we need to do this at scale. Yeah, Ashley, this is exactly right. This is why I'm saying if we can get enough people together in a community, once again, I'm building it on the school course because I do all this for free. And if donations don't come in, then I can't keep on doing it, is the bottom line. So I need to build something that allows me to do this for all of you guys. And so the people that actually want to do my stuff hardcore, I'm parking them at the school course. And then once we have a couple of years of people training through the school course, you've done at least 5 days with me, you're a competent meditator, and you've read the material so that you know what meditation is, you know what you're doing, you have the theoretical understanding you need to have to train at a real serious level in meditation. Then it doesn't matter which system you're going to train in. It's the same knowledge, whether you're talking about training in Kalachakra or you're talking about training in training in Thai forest. You're going to go through the same stages of concentration. Some of the other things will be different. The objects you use will be different. The practices will be different. But the stages of concentration, which is the main thing that we're all working on, are going to be the same. Yeah, a week would be good. I mean, probably for those practices, you should try to aim for at least 10 days, I mean, talk to your teachers, but it's good to do a fair amount, because it takes like 3 or 4 days just for your mind to get into the practice. And if you only have 3 more days remaining by the time your mind's fully into the practice, that's not, you want at least like 5 days fully in the practice once your mind is in the practice, I would say. I think probably 2 weeks actually is probably pretty good. But I do understand, if you're doing those kinds of practices and you're doing 12 to 16 hours a day, that 5 days is a lot. 2 weeks is definitely, it's pushing it for a lot of people. Okay. Well, my friends, I should wrap it up for today. Susan says touching the tailbone. Yeah, don't worry about the font. That's a dead end. Just carry on with the practice. And if you can get the number to be there and it's roughly the same thing each time, very roughly, that's fine. Because the main point is that you don't lose the count. The counting is just so you don't lose the activity. We're not going to be using visualization to progress all the way to the end of the training and concentration, so don't worry about the details in that way. Yeah, Ashley, I would say try to do the 7 days. 5 days, like probably day 3, you'll finally be getting the mind into the practice. So you want at least 7 days. Okay, let's see. Yeah. So there are. I'm not going to talk about it, but again, there are reasons that I do the body scanning the way that I do. because it's preparing you for other stuff at some point if you happen to encounter those things. But don't spend too much time on the tailbone. Uh, don't spend too much time on the tailbone. Just spend a little bit of time there. Get your mind familiar with being able to get into the tailbone area and then move on. Same thing with the forehead and other areas that I have us stop on during the practice. Don't spend too much time in those areas. Just spend a little bit of time, a little extra time there to become familiar with them, and then carry on, because you don't want to do too much work in those really sensitive areas of the body until you know what you're doing with them on purpose. All right, my friends, that is it for tonight. Thank you for coming. I don't have my special mug tonight, so I hope to see you again. Enjoy a nice cup of tea, and I will see you tomorrow at the same time.